you know that the bad guys got robots, and you know that the battlefield is your mind. And that means it has got to be go time for the Summer of the Scam, for the Rogue Revolution. Hello, you beautiful people. Today is day number 212 of Office Hours. The first quest, the first question, the first mystery to solve. I ain't no sheep detective, although I did just see that movie. But the question is, am I live on the right channel? Because it doesn't always happen that way. We know for sure that 212 might as well be the number of degrees here in the studio because we have to get a brand new AC unit in here. But before we get to any of that, happy afternoon, beautiful people. Normally, Office Hours is a morning affair, but today we get to relax, take her easy. We get to take a walk down memory lane. We're gonna, I don't know, settle real simple stuff. The kind of casual Saturday afternoon fare that one often does when they figure out all of intellectual property disputes in the realm of gaming. I think that's fair enough. Easy. It'll be a cinch, he says confidently with his wax, and then brushes the dust off of his wax wings. Saw what I did there. All right, beautiful people, we're going to start with today's Scam School. As you know, we got to verse ourselves in all of the deceptions that get used on other people. And that's why we have to watch Scam School, the only show dedicated to social engineering at the bar and on the street. No, I screwed it up. The only show dedicated to social engineering at the bar and on the street. All right, today we have a big one. This was a fairly popular episode. I'm giving a little bit of a clue for our degenerate gambling that's coming up here in a bit. But for now, we're going to watch How to Make a Bump Key, episode 109 of Scam School. Here we go. Boom.
This week, no residence is safe because you are going to commit crime. This episode of Scam School brought to you by Netflix and GoDaddy. Warning, the following episode may contain eggs, gluten, soy, and crime. Welcome to Scam School, the only show dedicated to social engineering at the bar and on the street. I'm your host, Brian Brushwood, and this week, I mean it, we're back to hardcore crime because you will go to jail if you abuse what you're about to learn, because we're about to find out how to use everyday objects that you have in your house right now to pick locks. All right, finally we get to learn from a true expert. Justin, how you doing? It's good to see you. All right, so we wanted to start off by talking about what kinds of locks are easy to either pick or bump, or there's a bunch of different ways to open locks, right?
Yes.
And what are the least safe that people don't realize aren't very secure at all?
Just about anything you can buy in a hardware store, Home Depot, any kind of department, anything under 75 bucks.
Really? So
Yeah.
pretty much everybody watching, their lock on the front door at home is easy to pick or bust into.
Right, and you can have an expensive lock, but it could have an inexpensive cylinder in it, so don't be fooled
Well,
by
explain to me that part. Talk to me about the cylinder. How does that's the center part of the lock?
Yes, that's where you put your key,
Okay.
and that's what operates the bolt, so you can lock and unlock it. But you can have different brand cylinders with high-end locks.
So you might have a high-end, very fancy pants secure lock, but the cylinder's junk,
Right.
and then you could just pop it right open.
Yeah, like for instance, Baldwin is a very exclusive brand, very expensive, and you can have a very inexpensive cylinder in there.
Okay.
So the lock may be secure, might be a nice lock, nice looking, but it's still very easy to open.
Now, I've done a little bit of poking around, and I learned one way to open these locks, the one we're going to talk about first. But before we do, can you give me an overview? What are the different ways that you could get past a lock like this?
Well, there's traditional picking with these kind of pick tools here, which I'm sure everybody's seen on James Bond.
Yep.
TV, it's a pick gun, it's very popular. We can drill them.
Just drill it straight through?
Yeah, very easily. You can bump key it.
Okay, so that's the one I learned about was the bump key. So explain to me the principle, because I kind of understand and was able to clumsily mess with it, but what is the principle of how a bump key works?
It's actually very simple. You have these keys, and the keys will have spacing and depths. This particular one has 6 cuts on it, and there'll be 0 to 9 depths. So from the top to the bottom, it's spaced out in 1500s increment, and it'll be 0 to 9, which gives you 10. So what they do is they cut all 9s on there, which is the deepest.
Okay.
And these little bumps, when you pull it out about a 1/16 of an inch and you whack it with something, applying slight turning pressure, the tumblers all get hit at the same time and create and snap it.
So this is the lock.
This is a typical cylinder.
Okay.
This would be the housing, which up in the top chamber would be these springs.
Okay.
And drivers, which we call top pins.
So, and I guess all of the brass part here would be up in the cylinder.
Be up inside this.
All of this silver part would be what, down in
inside
here?
the plug.
Okay.
The cylinder plug.
And so it's only when they're lined up just like you see here, because you can see on that key. So you
Right.
put the key in, and it pushes all these.
And lines them up perfectly even, which creates what we call the shear line.
Okay.
And allows it to turn. And that's how different combinations work.
So, and I guess when you put in a normal key like this, everything gets lined up and then it holds in that place and you could turn it open like that.
Right.
But the difference is with a bump key.
A bump key, what you're doing is it's putting all the tumblers on, which is dropping them all below the shear line.
Okay.
And when you snap them all simultaneously, it creates a gap. It snaps the top pin and the spring and will create a slight gap for
Just
that
for a split second, right.
And allows it to turn. It's like playing pull.
Okay.
You know, you can hit the ball stands still and the other ball goes flying.
Okay.
Same principle.
So in this case, all of these are getting hit and it's transferring the energy up into the spring, so all of these go up just long enough.
Just for that fraction of a second, because they're spring loaded, and if you hit it just right, it'll create that gap.
Dude, that's unreal. That's unreal.
Yeah.
And so we actually have a faux door here. I was going to give it a try and see if I can actually pull off the bump key. Sound good?
You got it.
Now, normally, this is where we continue our graduate level course in scamology through the use of Netflix.
Ooh, but normally nothing. I'm just scooting right in there.
This time I want to turn the tables and ask you guys.
No, okay, that was my weak sauce. That was Brian ran out of the Scam School episodes to do. One of my favorite comments on this one, a fairly popular episode, was years later. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago. Somebody said, "What the fuck? What the f? I just had an ad for Netflix interrupted by another ad," which I thought was really funny and novel at the time. Now not so novel. Happens all the time.
As a new member,
But also, this, man, I wonder if anybody can remember the before times, before this kind of knowledge was just everywhere. Speaking of which, I have a story about the robots here. We'll get to it. 1 second.
So this is what we put together. Actually, my intern Chad made this. This is the actual lock from my house that we put on a dummy door. And then I went online and I Googled. All I did was Google bump key, and I got for like $8 a set of house bump keys. And in fact, I went ahead and I got the expanded one. Now this is what surprised me. The bump keys that they sent, some of them were the type that would go in a house lock, but others of them, you had some that I know, like this one is a mailbox bump key.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy, what would this one be used for?
It looks like a padlock, master padlock.
So you can bump master padlocks as well?
Theoretically.
Is it? Oh, okay, interesting. I'll ask you more about that.
Yeah, not all locks are going to be as easy as others, but it's possible with a little bit of practice.
Okay.
You might get them.
Interesting. And this one looks like those ones that you always say do not duplicate for like commercial institutions.
Right, that looks like a commercial removable core key, which, you know, gotta give it a shot. It's possible.
Right. Well, speaking of giving it a shot, this is what I have. This is the actual key that goes in, right? And so we put it in. And I only practiced a little bit, so I'm probably going to screw this up and look like a big dumb dummy. But I noticed that there was a couple of different, and I guess these are all branded. Can you tell by the shape of the key? How do you know which key to put in?
If it goes in the lock, that should do it.
Okay, so I guess there's different grooves, and so like this one doesn't go in, but this one does go in. And the way I learned was that you put the key all the way in, and then you pull it one notch out, and then you just give it the slightest bit of torque to the right. Like you don't want to push it too hard or it won't go anywhere. But if you just barely put it to the right, and then give it a whack, then it should work, right?
Yeah, you're pushing it back in.
Okay.
And that's snapping all the pins simultaneously with the little bumps left over.
Right.
And shooting them up, and that will create that jump.
I guess this is not the quietest way to open a lock.
It only takes a minute.
Here we go. Just like that. And so this is a case where for $8 I was able to get a whole set of them. But then I found out that you can actually make your own bump key, and we took a different key, in this case one for a completely different lock, but even though the keys, the pins weren't right, it would fit inside. And I guess all we did was take a file and file down all the grooves, all the spacing
and the depths.
And then we just sort of added a ramp on each side. And I was shocked. I thought for sure some little jackass thing that we had made at home wouldn't possibly work. And again, I got to give credit to my intern Chad. He did all this. Oh, it's a really light touch.
Yeah, it's very light. If you give it too much pressure, you bind the tumblers and it won't snap up. So it's almost like a timing issue. You have to give it really light or be able to find that sweet spot where you turn it kind of simultaneously.
How hard do you need to hit it?
You get a good even...
Oh, there we go! Home version works, just like that. Now the thing is that each trial, I push it all the way in and then I have to take it out each time. But you were saying there's a way to get around that, right?
Well, sometimes you could use an O-ring and just wrap on it.
Now, is this any kind of special thing you need, or just any kind of gasket, any kind of rubber gasket?
Any O-ring that you can stick on there.
Okay.
Anything that would create about a 1/16 of an inch spacing that will compress.
And I guess the idea being that when you have the O-ring in there, it sort of automatically pushes the key back out after each hit.
Right.
So in this case, you put on the O-ring. Oh, that's so much easier. Because when you have the O-ring on there, you're able to just keep twisting to the right. You still have to twist it kind of slightly, but you could just keep hitting it over and over again, and it automatically works. That is scary easy.
The advantage is you can manipulate the turning pressure easier.
Okay, because you're not trying to do a timing thing or anything.
No, you're not trying to do timing anymore. You're just concentrating on how much pressure you give to turn it.
So it really is. It's all in the very light touch.
It's all in the turning.
Holy cow. That is unreal. So at this point, everyone is thinking, there's no way anyone can get in my house. I mean, it's over with. All locks are junk. But I wanted to find out, you said there are bump-proof locks?
Yes, there's several.
Well, good. Well, let's find out about those.
Ooh,
you know what's great
that's
about
interesting. The fact that the tease says up next a bump key, a DIY bump key explained. But meanwhile, my words were teasing a bump-proof lock. So that's interesting. By the way, shouts out to E.B. Florence, who showed up with the observation that I looked 20 years younger 20 years ago. Legit point. Also, immediately asking if it's clickbait. Read the description. There's a reason I bothered to do all that. I bid you hello. Welcome to Office Hours, good friend. Here we go.
Will that get you the domain for $7.49? It'll be keeping Scam School in business and yourself swimming in free drinks. All right, now before we find out which locks are bump-proof, I know everyone at home wants to know if they don't want to spend the $8, if they don't want to order something online, how can they actually just make their own key right at home?
Well, depending on the brand lock you want to bump open, you would first need a blank. Now, if you can't get a blank, most places won't sell you a blank.
Really?
No. Like if people come to the shop and they want to buy blanks, we don't sell blanks.
Okay.
Unless it's a reputable source.
Okay.
Because who knows what they're going to do with them.
Right.
There's other things other than bumping you can do with them that you don't want to sell blanks.
Of course.
So you can always just get a copy of your key.
Okay.
Right? So assuming this is your copy.
Right.
What you want to do is take a file and file them all down to the deepest part, which is usually the beginning of the milling. You'd want to use a round file.
Okay.
And what's really important is when you're creating a bump key is that you try to keep them exactly aligned where they are, the positioning, what we call the spacing.
Okay.
If the spacing is off and one of these bumps is over too far and one's over one way, it's not going to bump all the tumblers at the same time. So your bump key is not going to be as effective, or maybe not work at all.
Right.
And then you want to keep them all exactly the same as much as you can.
Okay.
So that's the trick of
now,
making.
How important is the diagonal of the slope? If they look more like little rounded teeth, is that not going to work as well?
as long as that they're all as symmetrical as you can get them, they're gonna probably work.
Okay.
But if it's really sloppy and they're all different, they're kind of one straighter, one more grounded, it's probably not going to be as effective.
So like in this case, this one worked, although it wasn't quite as nice as the machined one.
Right.
But this one we just did, like you said, we just tried to make them as evenly spaced as possible. We filed it all the way down to the base of the groove.
Which you experienced the other key.
The other key
worked
much better,
much better,
yeah.
because that was cut on a machine.
Especially
and symmetrical.
with the O-ring, yeah. Well, cool. So again, as long as it's the same manufacturer, I guess, does it have to be the same manufacturer? How do you tell?
The key has to go in.
As long as it fits in, you're totally
As long
good.
as it fits in, and the industry standard is a 5-pin key. So there's 5 cuts.
Okay, so
Now,
5 cuts down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I
Yeah,
see.
5 positions. Now commercial, you could run into 6.
Okay,
So if it's a commercial, a condos or something, it's possible you could have a 6.
but again, it's the same principle.
Same principle. So
Got
if
it.
you're going to go get a copy of your key because it fits in another lock that you want to practice on, if it's a commercial lock, you may never get it because it might be a 6 and you don't know it. Just because
Right.
it fits doesn't mean that it's not 6 chambers.
Okay, interesting.
Right.
Interesting.
So that's one thing to keep an eye on.
All right, so take an old key that fits in your lock, file it down just like that, and
Keep it as close as you can. Measure
just start playing with it. Okay, so now that we're all terrified that everyone can break into our house at any time, what do I want to get if I don't want to make sure that it's not bumpable?
Well, Slage is a common brand, and they make high security locks. One is Primus.
Okay.
They have one, another version called Everest, which is also made by Slage. And this is becoming the new industry standard, and in a few years or so, you'll probably start seeing this more available at Home Depot and such. And what makes it bump proof is they have an extra side milling in the side,
Ah.
and there's an extra tumbler on the side. There's an extra pin. You
There's
can
one
actually
bottom
see.
tumbler.
There's a bottom one that rides on that groove, and that is what the bump key will not work on.
Very clever.
So it's a dual locking cylinder now. There's 2 locking points. With the Primus, it has a whole bunch of them.
Holy crap, yeah.
So there's multiples, and there's a sidebar that comes in from the side that allows it to, when these all line up, it allows the sidebar to go into the side of the plug and turn it, and then it also has your traditional pins that are bumpable,
Okay.
but the side ones are not.
That's brilliant.
So there's this. There's Medico. There's a high security lock, which uses what we call biaxial. And if you look at these teeth, you'll see that they're angled.
Oh, wow, they are.
Yeah.
Left, right.
So this is a similar to this, but they've incorporated it into the teeth. So the pins, the tumblers, fit these notches and they twist.
Wow.
And in the side of each tumbler, there's a cutout. And when all of them are twisted right, at the right depth as well, it allows the sidebar to come in.
It's almost the difference between like, this is like a 2-dimensional kind of key, and that's like got 3-dimensional aspects
Yeah,
to
so
it.
it's kind of complicated. But
So
it's
if you
neat.
want a bump-proof lock, you're gonna spend how much?
This lock usually runs about maybe $150.
As opposed to like a $20
Yeah,
piece
yeah,
of junk like that?
yeah. And I mean, when you feel this and you know it's all solid, you can feel the weight of this.
Holy cow. And I guess, is this like the gold standard right here?
This would be more of a commercial. You can get it without a key, so you're not bumping anything.
Oh yeah, I guess, you know,
you're
maybe
not
that's
picking
the
it,
future,
you're not
yeah.
bumping it, you're not doing anything. This is a commercial lock. You'll see this lock, you know, in a lot of places. The back door, Safeway, any kind of department store across the country. This is a very common. It's called Trilogy.
Awesome.
Programmable, change the combination, lock people out, time activated. Do a lot of neat stuff.
Well, I know we're gonna be learning more ways to pick locks, but thank you so much, Justin. That was freaking awesome.
All right, Brian, thank you.
Guys, I cannot be clear enough. Have a blast, practice on your own doors, but don't go breaking into places you don't belong, because it is a crime and you will go to jail. Don't blame us. We don't need the lawsuits. By the way, if you have any success stories or failure stories, you can post them at the boards at revision3.com/scamschool, where you can see all of our episodes right back to episode 1. If you're doing the Twitter thing, you can follow the show at twitter.com/scamschool, or find out when I am in your hometown hosting Scam School meetups at twitter.com/schwood. If you have a suggestion for a future episode of Scam School, write me at brian@revision3.com. And don't forget, we'll be having future episodes where we're going to be learning other ways to pick locks. But until then, join us next week when we get a mathematical proof on exactly why Macs are better than PCs. Just kidding. Macs suck.
There we go. Wow, man. So, all right, you guys place your bets. We're going to do some degenerate gambling. Head on over to guessattack.com. That's guessattack.com and place your bets on how many views this one got, because we are all the way up to present tense real time. Or I guess this is when episodes were coming out on the channel. As a matter of fact, this one, I'm going to go to the DC TVpedia. DC, of course, Diamond Club for the real ones, the hardcores. Let's see, bump key. Nope. There you go, bump key. Oh, look at this. Yeah, this one came out on April 14th, right before, on tax eve of 2010. So the question is, how many views did it get? Head on over to guessattack.com, place your bets. Because we've got, there we go, Sine Wave coming in with 10 million. Not Scary Steve with 15,345,000. G. James B with 2,356,117. Kuro Matariku with 4.2 million. Bantarat with 6.9 million. Flying Car 100 with 650,000. Muslix with 2,082,091. Joey H666 with 5 million. Hawk Ever Consistence with 1.2 million. Cliff Horn with a ridiculous 21,200,000. And E.B. Florence, welcome E.B. Florence vlog with 600,666 on the map. And the actual number of views on this episode, wait for it, let's take a look, is 22,222,793. 22,222,793. Here, let's look at the analytics on this. We'll go YouTube Studio, jump back. Oh, wait, that's the wrong channel. Here, we'll switch to this one. There we go. Let's see. Oh, wait, now I want to go back. Hold on, it's going to be worth it. There we go. We'll jump to analytics. Scam, minute, lifetime since uploaded. So look at this. It actually stayed super duper tiny. When the day it premiered, it got 748 views. Nope. The day it premiered, it got 748 views. And then it was about 100 a day until, we get to 1,000 a day in the 2021. And then we get to peak Scam School era where it was doing 10,000 a day, and it just hit that sweet spot, and it just kept on going that entire time. How bonkers is that? And now, because time is a flat circle, it's right back to where it began with 100 per day. How crazy. Some notes on this one. I'd be curious. Oh, let's look at the retention analytics. Yeah, not bad. In that first part, you get pretty clear. So we're still holding everyone at 65% at 30 seconds. And then everything is just in a groove. And you get the ad break, of course. And then you get the ad break, of course. But that's a pretty flat show. Especially nowadays, the expectations for pacing would be so much faster. Super fast. Yeah. El Floren's, $2,000 revenue. Man, if you think that's bad, wait till you see shorts. Shorts are insane. Here, let's look at because, of course, your demographic is what matters. Let's look at the current shorts game. See where we're at. Okay, so here we go. We got two popping right now. So how to win the story behind that viral knife fail is currently at 2.6 million, $400. Womp womp. Welcome to YouTube. Hello, Charles Rubach. You got here just in time. Other notes on this one. Yeah, this is back in the days when it was dicey. It was hard to get anybody to show their face as a locksmith because locksmiths were cautious. Sport lockpicking was not known as a thing at this time. Oh, wait a tick. There we go. Oh, I just realized what this camera is poking at. Where is that? What is? Where is that camera? Well, I've got Michael Jackson socks. I literally put on white socks and I thought to myself, I shouldn't do that. But I thought there's no way anybody will see my ankles. And then it just so happens that this camera is over there, right there, for some reason. Oh, got it. Okay, I understand. That was really an odd moment. Thank you for going on that journey with me. But at any rate, so it was difficult to get somebody on the record teaching how to do a bump key. It was the right amount of illicit, and you'll notice that there's a heavy emphasis on how to have an unbumpable lock that we had at the end. That, of course, was to essentially that was the cost to get him on there. Also, Justin, super cool guy, chill energy, very chill energy. You could see young Brian Brushwood trying to compensate, trying to keep things afloat when he was just unimpressed with everything. It was amazing. Meanwhile, the question was, is it illegal to walk around with bump keys on you? Let's go to TOOOL. So tool with one extra O is the website that you want to go to. This is the Open Organization of Lockpickers. And there should be, I believe it's tool.org/map. Nope. Let's see. United States of America. There we go. TOOOL.us, the Open Organization of Lockpickers. And if we go to, where's the map? Laws. There we go. Lockpicking laws in the United States. Are lockpicks illegal? People across the country and indeed around the world are interested in lockpicking. However, we here at Tool encounter people who explain they would love to participate in sport picking if it weren't for the fact that lockpicks are illegal where they live. Oftentimes, people are wrong. So if you're curious about it, here's what the TSA has explicitly allowed flying with lockpicks. You can print a copy of that if they're going to give you trouble on it. This is not lawyerly advice, all of that stuff. But basically, here's how the United States breaks down. You've got picks are legal by statute. Just full on, picks are legal. The end. Picks are legal because there's no law about it. So in that case, there's the green means there is a law flat out saying that picks are legal. Dark green says they haven't gotten around to any kind of law on it. So that's North Dakota, Arkansas, North Carolina, Indiana, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. Then the yellow one, picks are legal, but further caution is merited. The yellow ones, I am not a lawyer, as I understand, are ones where if you are carrying lockpicks, it can, well, here, let's see exactly what it says. I was about to recite from memory because I've had to remember a bunch of these. Possessor may have to counter prima facie evidence of intent, but only if their lockpicks are concealed. So what that means is possession of burglars' tools. It's unlawful to have them in possession to aid in the commission of burglary. So basically, these are, as I understand it, a complicating factor. If you're getting arrested, let's say you get pulled over for a speeding ticket, and then they see that you have the burglary tools on there, possessor may have to counter prima facie evidence of or intent. Nevada, possession with burglarious intent. So again, intent matters. If you have them and it's because you're a sport picker and because you like to help people who are locked out of their apartments or what have you, then that is fine. There was at various times, as one could imagine, lockpickers as an organization have been various levels of, for lack of a better word, cartelled up on that. Basically making, in general, organizations don't want a lot of competition, so sometimes you get laws that reflect that. Virginia, possession of burglarious tools, etc. If any person has possession of tools with intent to commit burglary. So the other place we see a similar part of this is altering monetary currency in the world of magic. Every magician likes to make the joke that you're committing a felony when you burn up a dollar bill on stage or what have you. That is true, and it matters only if it is with the intent to alter the monetary supply. The idea being, if you're a state actor or something trying to burn money to literally screw up the monetary supply, then that is an actual act of war. And this is something we talked about on Modern Rogue multiple times. State actors like Iran were running very big counterfeiting operations with in a if they were caught, act of war. Now, one thing you're not going to see on this, it used to be Tennessee. Tennessee, if I recall correctly, was bright red back in the day. And now it's not. Now it's legal. Yep, May 27th, 2021, they corrected it. The Tennessee Locksmith Licensing Act of 2006, codified in Tennessee Code Annotated, is repealed. So they had, look at this, it was called the Tennessee Locksmith Licensing Act of 2006, which was kind of a cartel up protectionist act, and it got repealed. Therefore, as of May 27th, 2021, the state of Tennessee will no longer regulate locksmiths, locksmiths' apprentices, or companies. Licenses are no longer required to operate as a locksmith. So, well, that's encouraging. Maybe I should look at Texas. Unlawful use. A person commits an offense if he possesses a criminal instrument with intent to use it in the commission of an offense, or basically knowing that it'll be used for criminal intent. So for the purposes of this section, criminal instrument means anything. Blah, 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 blah. Let's see if you guys have any other questions. Got a pick for your boogie. What? There we go. Okay. Such tools. Yeah, do they currently have open carry in Texas? I know that was... Let me ask a robot. There, we'll do. There we go. Oh, no. Oh, no. That's not right. Oh, no. We don't have a whiteboard either. Guys. Here. Does Texas have open carry? Texas have open carry? Here. Let me get the whiteboard open for you beautiful, beautiful people. There we go. Yeah, I got to tell you guys just how rough and tumble it was getting set today. Thank you, Elb Florence. Elb Florence, let's shout out your channel. Can we check it out? If you're vlogging, we of course deeply celebrate independent creators of all stripes. Here, ELB underscore or Florence underscore vlog. Elb Florence underscore vlog. Hey, there we go. Right on. Oh, that's great. Oh, wait, sorry. I'm just sitting over here gawking. I thought I was showing this all off to you guys. That's dope. We had a when I was on tour with Brooks and Dunn and Rascal Flatts and Brad Paisley, they had a Brooks and Dunn hot air balloon that I always wanted to ride on. And then I think like a year or two later, there was a news item, a horrific news item about a hot air balloon that, just fell. It was bad, scary. But that's some dope footage. Oh yeah, the Cliff Horn's asking if we followed up with Ev Lloyd, Vegemite. Oh, I forget his name in the chat, but Ev Lloyd and Blurch Olive. I think they're probably working on the next episode or editing it down. I was thrilled that they did. Wait, it's mostly in German and about a bridge that collapsed. Hell yeah! I mean, that's terrible, is what I mean. Yeah, these are all gorgeous footage. Okay, let's talk about this game. Yeah, Texas does allow open carry, including permitless carry for most adults who are legally allowed to possess a handgun. Is that for reals? How about that? Texas allows open carry, including permitless carry for most adults who are legally allowed to possess a handgun. The key details: you can openly carry a handgun in public only if it's in a holster. Texas no longer requires a license to carry in most public places as of 2021 permitless carry law for 21 and up. Schools, makes sense. Government court areas, businesses. And I believe, here's the important part. I believe, am I right in understanding that any business that puts up a sign saying no handguns allowed, that becomes the law? Is that right? Because I believe there was one guy who was making hay saying that it needed to be illegal at all churches. And I'm like, man, seems like a church should be able to decide that. The practical version, generic no guns, no handgun sign. This clearly tells you the business doesn't want guns there and staff can tell you to leave. But for the cleanest, the sign itself triggers the Texas handgun trespass law situation. Texas uses statutory notices sign. So not just any sign. Got it. You want a specific kind of sign that is blessed. And it becomes a Class C misdemeanor. All right, let's talk about this video games. Should video game publishers be allowed to disable games you bought? We're getting into interesting territory here, guys. And I want to remind you guys that what I want to do is I want to aim to keep our lane clear. I really enjoyed yesterday us being able to talk about a pretty hot button issue where some of the, shall we say, casual engagers of content wanted to reduce the whole discussion down to cops good, cops bad, or hands good, hands bad, or journalists good, journalists bad. I thought we did a really good job of keeping everything on rails and keeping our lane of calling balls and strikes. Like, did they effectively communicate and why? That's the part that is more in our lane because, of course, we care deeply about the following. We care about the fact that bad guys have robots now. Deception can happen at scale. We've been talking about the Scampocalypse, this tidal wave of fraud where people are using robots and AI and the momentary confusion we have about it, just like we saw a explosion of fraud when the internet came along. We're going to see the same thing over the next 5 years. Next 5 years are going to be one of the most exciting, extraordinary times in all of humanity. And we have a front row seat because we know our lane. We know about deception. We know about the structure of scams and cons, how nothing new under the sun happens. And along this time, we're watching different communication modalities change. And that's part of the reason that we do two things. First of all, we learn the tools of the deceivers. That's why we're going through the Scam School back catalog. We're 109 down, 490 to go. We got a long way to go on this stuff. But along that way, we also want to know the tools that are being used. And along with that, the shifting landscape in terms of everything from property rights to how we interact with each other. So we're going to take a look at this extraordinary video. 2 million views over the last month on a channel, Europe Echo, that I think only has 15,000 subscribers. So whenever that happens, that captures my interest. So we're going to take a look and break down the question of this video. Should video game publishers be allowed to disable games you bought? And we'll try very hard to keep the scope of the discussion not to international copyright and property laws, but the general questions of whether or not people adjudicate themselves well.
I am the founder of the Stop Killing Games consumer movement, which has many shared goals with the initiative. I'd like to clarify what it means to destroy a video game. The second slide. When we say a game has been destroyed, what we mean is a publisher has permanently disabled all copies of it that have been sold so no one can ever play them again. It would be like removing every single copy of a book or film in existence.
So this is a very, very strong opening in that it clearly defines the relevance of why he's at the hearing and in terms of what the scope of is and clearly defining terms, because here's one of the things that matters. I've been accused of coming up with a metaphor or five at times. These metaphors matter because when we think about property rights, especially intellectual property, it's very hard because we don't see the thing in front of us. Or in the case of video games, it's not inherently clear what you're buying. Are you buying the physical disc? Or are you buying the arrangement of the bits and bytes of data? Are you buying a license? These are all up for grabs as people are constantly rethinking the experience. So which metaphor legally you are relying upon has an outsized impact on it. So in this case, the flowchart says, how do video games previously sold to consumer are typically destroyed? 1, they sell a copy of the video game. 2, the game is designed to connect to the publisher in some way to work. Well, I guess he's explaining all this, but we want to look at the slide beforehand. The customer is not told when their game will start or stop working at the time of purchase. We'll get to that one. After an undisclosed length of time, the publisher, aka when it ceases to be profitable, the publisher disables the game for the customer. There's a number of, depending on the types of game, and we'll talk about this, because is there an obligation to support the game forever? As somebody who played City of Heroes, an MMO, I was very sad to see that entire world vanish at one point.
Effectively erasing it from the culture. The way this practice works is first a publisher sells a copy of a video game. However, it has been designed so that it must connect to the publisher in order to function. This acts as a potential kill switch. The customer is also given no information when the game will stop working, even though the publisher has decided to assume that responsibility. Then, after an undisclosed length of time, the publisher disables all existing copies of the game, but keeps the customer's money. The publisher also enacts countermeasures to ensure repairing the game. To ensure repairing the game is almost impossible, even for experienced software professionals. From this point onward, no customer can ever run the purchase again. Besides destroying the game, this practice is also subverting customer expectations. Most video games can work indefinitely, which has been the customer standard for half a century, including ones that connect to the internet. Alternately, a small number of video games operate as subscription services, but those inform the customer exactly when their access ends at the time of payment. The games we're referring to do no such thing. It's a bit of miscommunication. They almost always contain terms stating they can end at any time for any reason. What this means is customers have no real protections when they buy games like these. They are unable to keep them, and they are not informed when they will end. This behavior would be outrageous in other industries. If you bought a book in a store, the publisher cannot come into your home and take back your book at will. If you bought an insurance policy, you would be informed when that policy ends, not that the seller could end it at any time for any reason, but still keep your money. The games being sold this way are operating similar to scams. Publishers know customers expect video
You have my attention. Make the case for, okay, go on.
games to last, so they sell these in the same way as ones that can work forever. As a one-time purchase with no expiry date, then price them the same.
This is a very good framework. So legally, when you want to advance an agenda, you want to get the jury, the decider, the voter, in this case, I don't know, the board, I'm assuming, at whatever this is, you want to get them saying, yes, I'm with you on this. Yes, I see how this is also similar to it. And then, yes, I see how this ends up feeling fraudulent to do it the other way. That key distinction that he brought up, let me make sure that we got closed captions on there. There we go. That key distinction that it looks and feels like a duck, quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, is a duck, and yet is fundamentally different, I think is a really good part of the argument. Also, I'm certain it's difficult to do any kind of public speaking, and we talked about, in fact, I took some flack in the comments on yesterday's episode when I was talking about how police officers aren't automatically gifted public speakers. Some people were of the opinion like, no, you see them talk to crowds all the time. That doesn't mean that they're good at it. We all have our own natural gifts and places where we shine. And in this case, being the representative for advocacy doesn't necessarily make you a gifted orator any more than well, here. Full hearing highlights. This is Scott Accursed Farms, sets out the consumer's case behind the Stop Killing Games movement, and what he means, and clearly define the word destroyed. I would love to, if we had more infinite time, I would love to see the specifics on the legislations, but we'll continue to
purchase with no expiry date, then price them the same.
Now, that is extremely good, keeping the scope of the discussion to as close as possible, apples to apples. If you are buying a game in the way that you would buy a game with an expectation of it working forever, whether or not the company exists or doesn't exist, if it looks and feels like that, but is a different animal, then that is a good anti-fraud, pro-consumer standpoint. And it's an important key distinction away from, for example, an MMO where, or like, let's say a licensed game based on an online world, where you could make a case that it's a theme park-like experience. Like if you buy a membership to a theme park that gets you an annual pass, there's not an expectation that it is Disney's obligation to keep the park going as opposed to let it fall into disrepair or close the park entirely.
Publishers know that if customers were informed exactly when they plan to disable their games, that would reduce sales, since the longevity of a game affects how much customers are willing to pay. The industry is trying to have it both ways, finding ways to say they're selling you a game that they're not selling you. This creates confusion for everyone involved and is part of why it's taking customers so long to get exposure on this practice. The legality is also unsettled.
That's a strong point. The counterpoint, if I was going to steelman the other side of it, is, let's say you are an author who's created a beloved franchise and you have asserted exclusive rights to, well, to aspects of the world. Oh, I should turn on the whiteboard so y'all can go nuts. There you go. Then if you wanted to raise money for an online world based on that fantasy world, then the owner of the IP would want protections to know that, let's say you do a bad job, or the worry is that there's a bad job. Yes, beep boop, 3-card Monty. Like, for example, let's take our friend Patrick Rothfuss, whose third book I'm certain is coming. We're all being very, very patient. And then let's say I wanted to say I have a special version of TAC as a software thing, and I want to sell it on the Steam store, and I'll cut you in on it. And then let's say, because I'm bad, I make a bad version of TAC where I'm changing rules and all that stuff. Then at that point, that version of TAC actively degrades the online property and damages Patrick Rothfuss's situation. So in that case, a kill switch, even and let's say my bad degraded version of it becomes popular, then Patrick Rothfuss would want there to be a kill switch. That's the most Steelman counter argument I can think of on this from what I've heard so far. But back to his framework of we're at a place of it being ambiguous whether or not are they trading on the trappings of traditional software sales? And if so, then are they defrauding people as a result of making it look like you're buying in a traditional sense a game when secretly it just has a kill switch that can be used as leverage to extract more money from you later, which we all agree would be a bad thing.
Parliament assisted us in asking questions to the EU Commission about how legal the terms and game license agreements were, especially being able to terminate them at any time for any reason. The Commission stated Directive 93/13 EEC prohibits unfair terms causing a significant imbalance in the parties' rights and obligations to the detriment of consumers. The Commission also recommended consumers file complaints with businesses across member states through the European Consumer Centers Network. In 2024, we had volunteers across the majority of EU countries submitting complaints against the French company Ubisoft for disabling the game The Crew.
It's so funny how a brand is simply an expression of the reputation that a name evokes. A lot of things were not clear until I heard the words Ubisoft. And all of a sudden, for me, subjectively, a bunch of preconceived associations bubbled up to the surface. And I was like, aha, now I understand. Here we go.
The responses we received from the ECC network were extremely inconsistent. Some officials said there was nothing they could do. Others said the company was required to run the game indefinitely, which is unrealistic. But the majority stated there was no clear regulation on this practice.
Yeah, okay, this is a really strong rhetorical position that they're doing, is they're pointing out that this is a multi-headed hydra, that we're dealing with a massively parallel organism, and different cells are giving different accounts of the story, and what they are seeking, strong rhetorical position, they are seeking disambiguation. Can we all agree what it means to buy a game? That is a strong move.
We were independently able to get thousands of complaints submitted to consumer agencies in France and Germany, but there still has been no decision on them on the legality either. To the best of our knowledge, no one in the EU has ever been compensated for this and hundreds of other titles. In short, governments in EU countries are not sure how to handle.
Okay, so these are examples from stopkillinggames.wiki.gg. They've got a list of dead games. Let's take a little peek at that, actually. We'll head on over to stopkillinggames.wiki. I'll just do a quick search for that. You remember searching? That was a thing. Let's do dead games list. Oh, there we go. Dead game list. There we go. Okay, so dead game list. This list represents the best effort to document game shutdowns. It's not 100% accurate. If you want to contribute, please do so. Great. So we have Dev Preserve versus Dead plus Fan Resurrected. Due to some issues with incorrect information being added, and this expecting to be an authoritative source, editing of this page is restricted. That makes sense. Wikis are great unless they're not. Oh, there we go. So at risk is Board Game Fight Club. Oh, 1944 Battle of the Bulge, 2006 FIFA World Cup, online services. So this is another thing, is fan-led initiatives. For example, the beloved online world City of Heroes. That came out before World of Warcraft, I believe. I'm not sure about that. But that was the MMO that I imprinted on. And I have beloved feelings about Paragon City. And eventually, that project, NCSoft couldn't support it. And from what I understand, there are fan-run private servers that are in that gray area of abandonware. And that's the other thing. I love fan initiatives that support all of this stuff. However, where things become tricky are when you collect money from investors who, among the thing that they're buying is exclusivity or the perceived right to take exclusive later on. Then things get more complicated. So we also have fan preserved. We have at risk. They could be shut down and dead. Ace of Spades, Battle Builder, Ace Online, Ace Racer, Adventure Quest, Animal Crossing, Pocket Camp, Angry Birds Light by Rovio. So that used to be one that you could just buy, and then it's gone. That's another place where you want people to remember the individual stings. For example, VidRhythm. Do you guys remember the app VidRhythm? VidRhythm. It was created by Harmonix, and I bought it, and now I can't get at it anymore. It was released in 2011. It was great, and now it's gone. Meanwhile, if you look online, we could go to, let's think of this as a game that I assume would be covered in this kind of thing. Like, I paid money. That's interesting. I don't know what my expectations are on that. VidRhythm examples. Yeah.
Hey everybody, this is Robot Kid, and welcome to VidRhythm. So, thought we'd just do a little instructional video for you guys so you can figure out how to use our new app. On this screen, basically, choose your song, and here's a list of 20 different tracks we made. If you want to hear a little preview, there's a button over on the left-hand side that you can click and get a little preview. So let's do Death Breath. That sounds good. So if I hit this button, get a little preview. That's nice. Metal. Okay, so select that. So this is the video style screen. You can see we have a bunch of different options. And this is basically how your videos are going to look in the finished product. So, I'll just pick video wall. Here we are. You can see there's 6 video slots down on the bottom. And I can sort of click through here. Yeah, why don't we let's start with the bass drum. So what I'm going to do is it's going to hit this red blinking button here. And when I hit that, it's going to record for 1 second, both video and audio. So ready, here we go. Boom. And what I can do is actually just hit this button down here, and if I want to hear it back, boom. Oh yeah, that's nice. Certain samples, you actually have to sing a note. And so to help you sing, we have our little friend Chirpy, the guide note. And so Chirpy is right, that guy. And so what happens if I hit Chirpy, let's hit Chirpy and hear what he has to say. So he plays like a little note, and so the idea is that you want to try and sing that same note. So let's see if I can do it. Okay, so I'm going to try and get close to this. Here we go. All right, close enough. So let's record some of our other samples and see what we get. Boom. Yow! Select Make Video Music, and let's check out your VidRhythm. Okay, so if you're happy with your awesome heavy metal mashup, you can go on to the save and share screen. And so here you can save your video to your iDevice. And so after you save it, it will show up in your camera roll. You can also save it and share it on YouTube or Facebook. And also from the screen, if you want, you can go back and re-record your samples or change your video style, or you can just start with a new song. So yes, that's basically how you use VidRhythm. Everyone here at Harmonix is really psyched to see what you guys come up with. So get out there and start making some video music. We'll see you on the internets.
Yeah. RIP VidRhythm, which is a game I dug quite a lot. But in the meantime, back to what we want. So now we're pretty well anchored in the experience that we, of course, that we are. Hold on, sorry. We have an example now of what we're looking to not have happen.
This situation, and customers are overwhelmingly not being compensated for the loss of their purchases. It is an ideal situation for clear regulation. This is not a new practice. It started approximately 2005 and began negatively impacting customers for them around 2010 onward.
Oh, this is interesting. So I wonder, 2005, what the iPhone came along in 2007, and then the App Store came along shortly afterwards. So the App Store, I assume, is inextricably linked to this this perception of, remember, there's been legislation about what it means to buy content in the App Store. Boy, then we get into the thorny issue of running their own App Store. Then we have the Apple-ness of it all. All right.
However, it often affects a minority of customers whose complaints can get lost in the system. It wasn't until a large case affecting millions that any attempts to get government attention were possible, and there still is no.
Oh, that's right. Wasn't it Fortnite, Sinewave, that they build Fortnite? It was Epic Games that was taking on Apple. There's that whole aspect of it as well. And of course, the Apple App Store thing is they built that ecosystem that makes billions of dollars of gaming possible. And so, yeah, they wanted to charge a gate fee for the entire thing. Ooh. And then meanwhile, there was the alternative of going to the free system yeah, anyway.
Answer. The EU Commission says this must be handled on a case-by-case basis, but this practice is extremely widespread. Future slides. We have formed an amateur study examining over 1,100 video games that require a connection to the publisher.
This is also a very powerful rhetorical thing to remind them of, is authentic amateur grassroots movements are real power. And we've seen it, you know, as a matter of fact, when we get into the ugly realm of politics, then so often we have this perception that you know, whoever has money gets their way. And yet we so often see that the candidate with less money ends up winning.
Publisher.
Or the one who spends less money ends up winning.
The majority of these have been deliberately disabled by the publisher, with many of the rest still at risk of being destroyed.
So real quick, trying to steelman the opposite side. There is a case of when something is no longer profitable, especially if it's useful enough, there's liability concern. Like, again, steelmanning. Hypothetically, I could imagine that allowing people to fan support VidRhythm, where does that end up if, let's say, hypothetically, there was injurious or politically charged VidRhythm-powered music videos? We're literally seeing that right now in the world of AI being used with the who's the guy, the mayoral candidate in Los Angeles is in the middle of enjoying a largely fan-led AI meme video situation. I could be talked on that. Yeah, Sculptoroid, thank you very much for the kind words on the SDR episode. 50,000 views already. Yeah, we could break down those numbers once we get done with this video. And in fact, that would probably be good because I have to make a decision on whether or not to A/B test a different angle on those. But at any rate, thorny issue. So again, we're here to see whether or not they stick the landing on making the case.
Deliberately disabled by the publisher, with many of the rest still at risk of being destroyed. Under the strictest interpretation of what it means to disable a game, the study found that out of over 400 titles, publishers disable a customer's purchase 93.5% of the time when ending support. This business practice is responsible for more destruction to the medium than anything else by an enormous margin.
Okay, so
there is also a strong
I would be curious, and this is, again, this can creep forever, and in fact, maybe we'll be able to do a follow-up discussion about it, but I wonder how much of this is tied to ecosystem support, app store support, like,
correlation between this practice and the size of the publisher. As most small studios
like if you bought through Steam versus buying through an iOS app store,
do
et
not
cetera.
engage in it, as it requires far more resources, work, and liability than they can handle. So
Yeah, Activision, Atari, get out of here. Rovio with the Angry Birds franchise, Sony, Electronic Arts, all of these publicly traded, which is also part of it. When the board, the shareholders, when they are the ones making the decision, then on the page is where you encounter that perception of, oh, where did it go? There we go. Of like, they're sufficiently disconnected from the boots on the ground experience that I can understand why a shareholder would blindly support disabling a game if they don't see the damage to their reputation that they're doing in the long term. So we see this also when a beloved independent institution sells to private equity. The private equity is essentially buying goodwill, and oftentimes immediately their first move is to start gouging out cost-saving measures, which erodes the goodwill name, which is why a beloved brand begins to act less and less belovedly.
even though this impacts a minority of games, it disproportionately affects customers due to the scale of the largest offenders. From sales figures,
that's a really good point. T2T2 points out. Oh, hang on, we got Sign calling right now. Sign, I assume you got an angle I have missed.
Yes. So pretty much the big thing isn't so much like the App Store or anything, because that's inconsequential. What the Stop Killing Games movement, what that whole thing is about, is the fact that you buy a Nintendo game. I am talking original NES. You physically own the cartridge. You physically have purchased the cartridge. Now, in all of the licensing, you are just licensed. You just have a license to play the game, but you physically have an artifact of that game. What the Stop Killing Games movement is all about is it is saying, hey, well, we might be buying digitally, but I have a copy of this game installed on my computer. Now, MMOs and different things, it's understandable. There's back-end servers and everything for that.
Right.
So if those go down, you know, you're buying into that. You are expecting that this isn't going to be around forever. But if you buy a racing game like The Grid, which is one of the things that they were talking about,
right,
that is a racing game that has a single player component where you can play it all by yourself.
Right.
And it had a multiplayer thing. And they decided, we are going to disable the entire game. You cannot play that game offline, even if you have the files physically installed on your computer.
Right.
We have implemented DRM, which effectively phones home no matter what.
Right.
And what they are saying is, as a practice, that should be illegal. If you are going to shut down the game, you should provide everybody who bought it.
All right, hold on. There's
so
only
that
one
they can-
person who supersedes you. It's Bonnie. Hold on. There you go. Bonnie, are you calling in with a hot take on the Stop Killing Games movement?
On the
Stop Killing Games movement. That's what we're breaking down. We're breaking down a public hearing. Apparently, we've gotten all the way into communications modalities. Sign was just calling in.
Oh my goodness.
Kuro Matsuriku says, Bonnie, you have to save us. We need you to just fix the Stop Killing Games thing.
Stop Killing Games.
Yeah, so what Sign was explaining is that that there is a profitable incentive to build kill switches into games to where games won't work unless they radio in to Mother May I permission to play. And then when the game stops being profitable, they stop keeping that server alive. And then that DRM, that digital rights management, that anti-piracy measure, makes it to where all of a sudden the game that you spent $60 on or $20 or whatever, just you can't play it. And then there's the legal question of like, well, but what if the fans support it? And then if there's restrictive DRM ecosystems, then they the answer is nope, that's illegal, which sucks. But then, so we're negotiating all the thorny stuff, but within the confines of this one particular 10-minute video, because otherwise we'll actually be participating in the argument, which we want to try to avoid.
Yeah. Well, it seems like what I've seen as a trend from starting with some Apple talk is you rent things, you never fully own things.
Right.
And so they're, even talking to the tech, like you don't ever really own your phone. You're just renting the phone.
Well, and
in which case,
that's part of the reason that legally there's now laws on the books. You'll notice that in the App Store, it no longer says, there's no longer a buy button. There's now a get button.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know. I kind of like owning things.
Exactly. We all do. We all like that. However, we also like awesome things being made, and we understand that there's profit incentives and all that stuff. And so we're halfway through looking at this particular video game hearing from Europe Echo with the question, should video game publishers be allowed to disable games you bought? It's a European Parliament hearing.
I just kind of hate the idea of only the most popular games being funded, because I think the most popular things are usually pretty crappy. So I'm just like, okay, this is so average. I mean, who wants average things?
Well, and
if everything's being made for average so that it gets the most average support, then it's probably pretty average. And I want something a little more interesting than that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, cool.
All right. Well, solve the problems.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. All right, hold on. Sign. Let me get through more of this. Then we'll break down the in the weeds.
Customers minimum in the EU. This impacts developers as well. This may seem obvious, but based on interviews and feedback, we found the majority of game developers do not support having games they've worked on destroyed. They can spend.
That's the other funny part of this, right? It's like the bad guys are the ones who care the least. Like both the creators and the consumers are like, we all really wish this wasn't the case.
Years of their lives creating them, but they are often not the ones making these business decisions, and sometimes even sign non-disclosure agreements so they cannot voice their opinion on the matter.
By the way, Che exactly coming in with the ghost thought of man, the dread part of me can see the EU supporting this and the game saying, congrats, we won't bother to invest because it's not profitable. That's another important part of it, but and that's where I'm tempted to want to dive in to actually look at what the proposed legislation is, or because I'm sure my independent streak will have a beef with the heavy hand of legislation in there. But meanwhile, again, we're trying to keep the scope to, are they nailing it on the messaging? And so far, I think I've really dug everything I've heard here.
The main point I hope that does not get lost in this hearing is this initiative welcomes any solution that will solve the problem.
Yes! Oh, beautiful! 10 out of 10. That's how you do it. That's hilarious. Like in the middle of me saying, man, I want to restrict the scope of what I'm doing on this live stream, so too do they say we are open to any solution. So, and T2T2, Boots on the Ground from Estonia, points out that there's no proposed legislation, but there is one in California. And then we get into the California of it all. Californian legislation, shall we say, tends to be a bit heavy-handed for the likes of, to the tastes of this pro-independent creator.
Of video games being destroyed on this scale. We want this to be as easy and as practical as possible for all parties involved, and are very open to how that is achieved. We are not even asking publishers to...
So this is again, a powerful and strong rhetorical position to to essentially say yes or no, will you deal us in with a seat at the table as a concern, which I think is a very adroit maneuver.
Change their business or monetization models. Only that once they end support, they do so in a responsible way.
Okay. Yeah. The word responsible does a lot of heavy lifting. That is a yellow flag because a lot of dumb lawsuits happen under the realm of the reasonable man hypothesis. So that less strong ground on that one.
Our only goal is to prohibit this destructive practice and thus obtain basic protections for consumers and the medium as a whole. I'd like to add a little bit on the economic aspect. Again, when planned for from the beginning, the cost can be very small. It's mostly about when it's undoing that's more of a cost related.
So this is a really good point, because what he's saying is right now we have an unbelievable amount of negative externalities on end of lifing for our products. We don't like to begin a project thinking about its ultimate heat death at the end of time. However, entropy does reign, and what he's strongly, if I'm understanding the point correctly, is saying a little bit of forethought will have an outsized benefit in uncomplicating things at the end. So in my hypothetical scenario where the owner of a fantasy IP or whatever, a game is built that the fantasy IP person doesn't like, or well, actually, in that case, I'm borrowing trouble. He is pointing out that the vast majority of these are not complicated, and that they are made complicated by heavy hand of DRM. And I couldn't agree with that more. I think that is the safest, strongest rhetorical ground for him to be on.
Earlier the game Concord was mentioned. That's actually...
Well, so here we go. Sinewave asks, theme parks, of course, need staff, but if a theme park is just a laundromat, arcade cabinet, free play, why shut it down? Because let's say that there are so many, let's say Chuck E. Cheese fell on hard times. I know I'm postulating something extraordinary, but let's say it fell on such hard times that it became synonymous with heroin distribution or whatever. And let's say Chuck E. Cheese was a beloved property that was owned by a family that was being materially damaged. They would very much like to be able to pull the plug before it descends into brand disrepair. Because again, ultimately, in the world of intellectual property, as the great sage and eminent Freeman Muad'Dib said, he who has the power to destroy a thing controls the thing. And if you don't have the power to destroy a thing, then you do not control that thing. And I think that is the more hypothetical in the weedsness that we all want to speculate and argue about. But to dial it back to the positioning that we're doing here, he's staying on very, very strong ground.
An excellent example, because it's publicly stated that at least 370 million euros were spent developing that game, and it did not include an end-of-life plan like what we're seeking. Most of the cost for developing games tends to come from other areas like art assets or marketing. This is just one element out of hundreds.
So, and this is, I think, the strongest position is maintaining, like, at the very least, advocacy. Whether or not we're going to use the heavy hand of law and then spark those heuristics, notwithstanding, I think that this is an incredibly strong position of, like, hey, before you begin, be thinking about the end.
Making a game. The other thing is sometimes industry costs or estimates of how much this would cost can be faulty, because they're expecting the game they're asking for to have every last feature it did while it was being supported. And many of those can be retired and don't even make sense for a game that's no longer being supported, like administration or anti-cheat measures or account management or things like that. So that can drastically, there could be hundreds, or known as microservices, associated with these that can be disabled, and the customer still has the core game. So that should be taken into account when figuring out the potential cost. And it might have been mentioned earlier, but we also want to emphasize the companies have been paid already once for the working game, so that should be factored into the budgeting. There were some other points mentioned.
Yeah, that's another word that is powerful and that is easy to nod along with is should, but then it gets, yeah, for where we are right now in this process of like, deal us a seat at the table, I give my blessing to the word should.
On the right to repair, whether we need it and how long a product should work. With right to repair, that's a little bit different issue. Well, that's certainly welcome, having the right to that. As I mentioned in my presentation, there are deliberate countermeasures to prevent repair. That it's almost like a small miracle when it does happen from extremely experienced software.
So the right to repair thing is going to be a really interesting situation because we're entering an age where all of the difficulties in right to repair are about to go away. 5 years from now, the robots will be good enough that all you have to do is collect all the data of what the game looks like and then say, cause that experience. And I don't care what happens under the hood. And the robots will be able to cause that experience. And that experience will, or can/will, hypothetically, be in complete violation of the intellectual property holder's rights. So that hopefully is a challenge that is being sunsetted.
Professionals for resurrecting a game. However, if there were repair instructions, that would be very welcome. I think we would even consider that a viable alternative to what we're asking, if it was practical to resurrect the game that way. And for how long it should work, it's kind of again, the customer standard is indefinitely, as long as they keep the game in good working order on their end. And we're not trying to hold any publishers responsible for updates that break things that wasn't there.
Not that I was asked, but in a perfect world, and of course you're not dealt a perfect world, we're 90% of the way through a 10-minute slice of time at a hearing. Everything I've seen has been 100%. This is where if I was placed in that challenging position, I would, at this point, I would do what they call in advertising, address and dismiss. That is where you want to correctly identify all the things that the customer is thinking or putting on their radar as a concern. You want to say it before they've had a chance to bring it up and then say, don't worry about it. The best example of this I've ever seen was the Dollar Shave Club ad, the one that went viral 15 years ago. It begins with that dude saying, I know what you're asking. $1 a month for razor blades? Are they any good? No, our blades aren't good. Our blades are effing great, which is not at all an answer. But he correctly addressed your concern and dismissed your concern before you had the opportunity to let it get away with you. And so correctly, I think at this point of the presentation, we're addressing all the concerns, but we're not flatly dismissing them. So instead, another example of this weird flex, but I'm going to cite chapter and verse from the Kurt Wimmer audio commentary track of the movie, the low budget movie Equilibrium. Boy, does Kurt Wimmer come out swinging. He has clearly read all of the reviews on his movie, and he rattles off all of the movies that it was accused of being a ripoff of, or all of the intellectual properties it was accused of being a ripoff of, and then says, and correctly represents all of their positions, and then explains all of the reasons that it's not those things and so on. So likewise, in a perfect version of this, I would be cheering for, this is a concern later. This is a concern later. This is a concern later.
They're doing. So how long they choose to support it, we're completely open to. I mean, I think there's already existing EU regulations on that, but I mean, they, as far as we're concerned, they could end support the next day, but as long as the game isn't destroyed, we would find that acceptable. And the last point on the, for doing this through the existing, just doing this through the courts, through the legal action, that still doesn't get to the heart of the matter of the game itself being destroyed. We're not really refunds and compensation. Those are a secondary measure that when the game itself can't be reinstated. We just want the game preserved. So doing it through the existing framework doesn't.
Yeah, no, this is 90% super solid. If I were cheering, it'd be for a tight dismount. We all, as storytelling consumers, we all remember the beginnings of our stories and the ending of our stories. And in this case, I think that we got a fantastic beginning. I think that the bulk of all of the points were extremely well articulated. You know, of course, it's a miracle. I am certain that nobody knew that this would be a 2 million view Flashpoint video. But much like yesterday's example of the cop and the lady without a right hand, I thought everybody acquitted themselves well, and I think that this was a fantastic performance. I mean, yeah, whatever. We're all performing all the time, but this is, I think, really good. Now, if we want to actually argue about the case, then we can argue it. But then, at this point, we run the issue of the AI problem. Like, no two people arguing about AI are having the same argument. And there are so many lenses. This is a more... there are more guardrails on this discussion than on AI. But good stuff around. To get to the parliamentary hearing, they had to get over 1 million signatures from EU citizens. So, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, I guess in YouTube land, yes, clearly everybody who pushed this and got to this point knew that this was a big moment. But I guess to people more on the periphery of the issue, like yours truly, this was kind of an awesome out of nowhere thing. Let's see. Okay. Boo. Also, thanks Pirate Software for the anti-advertising of the campaign. Tell me about that, T2T2, or if there's a link of something we should look at. We could take a look at that. But shoot, we ran long. It's already an hour and a half. We learned how to break into houses. We learned why that's legal. We learned that you could carry lockpicks, you could fly with them. We learned that that people should probably spare a few pennies on the dollar of their investment thinking about a graceful end of life to things. Yeah, oh boy, that's a freaking rabbit hole. All right, well, we'll save that for another day. Meanwhile, thank you guys so much for spending Saturday afternoon with me. This late edition of Office Hours brought to you by the fact that I saw The Sheep Detectives, a fine movie. I watched it for a second time. It only felt like 3 hours. Yeah. All right, beautiful folks. Until then, we'll do this. Here, I'm going to reload this page. We'll go ahead and bring this on. Here we go. And then we'll play us out. Goodbye, beautiful people. We'll see you guys tomorrow.